Thank you to everybody for joining us today. I want to add my thanks to our sponsors and to the many, many fantastic virtual table hosts who are helping to make this event successful. I am so honored to be part of the Peace and Justice Action League community with all of you as we this fall celebrate 45 years of engaging everyday people building a just and nonviolent world. We want to begin by respectfully acknowledging that while we are gathering while practicing physical distancing, wherever we are on Indigenous land. I am standing on the unceded lands of the Spokane people who have stewarded this land throughout generations. I want to pay my respects to elders both past and present. We do this to offer recognition and respect and to counter the doctrine of discovery with the truth about the people who were already here and who continue to resist colonization and to sustain their language, culture, and people. And we know that it is insufficient to simply acknowledge the land that we occupy. We need to continue to center the voices, leadership, and solutions of Indigenous people here in our community and around the world. We also stand in solidarity with Indigenous people who are leading the fight to protect our beautiful planet's health and biodiversity across the globe. We must support Indigenous-led organizations, buy Native, integrate the creative voices of Indigenous people in our lives all year long, and give financial resources now to Indigenous communities who are experiencing disproportionately terrible impacts of both the coronavirus epidemic and of wildfires. We're gathering today in the context of a confluence of interlocking crises caused by human actions, human inactions, and human systems. Not just the global coronavirus pandemic, but also climate disruption, escalated white nationalism, deep-rooted white supremacy culture and misogyny, anti-Black and anti-immigrant racism, mass incarceration, class exploitation and poverty, colonialism and imperialism, and underlying militarism and violent domination. In this confluence of preventable crises, most of us on a daily basis are experiencing emotional storms, storms of fear, horror, sorrow, grief, rage. And in the midst of these structural crises and emotional storms, I have found it critical to pause and ask myself, why am I feeling this? I came to recognize I feel these overwhelming storms because of the love that I feel for my children and for the earth, for my friends, for my community, the love that I know we all feel for each other, whether we know each other or not. And it's critical to feel that while we are united in our rage, we're also united in our love. And that's the fire in our bellies. And we know that the mix of love and outrage is the most powerful, potent, long-lasting, guaranteed fuel mix that we can have. Our call is that we believe in the yet to be. In our Peace and Justice Action League community, we believe in the power of everyday people to accomplish extraordinary things together, to end white supremacy culture and systemic racism, to end patriarchy, to end class exploitation, to end militarism. How can we know that it makes sense to believe in the yet to be? I mean, look around. I've been thinking of a quote from Gandhi who said, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time, they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it, always." And we know that structures and systems of tyranny and death bring a brutal cost. Transforming them requires decades and actually centuries of struggle, which ebbs and flows. And that brings me to a quote from Howard Zinn, who says, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory. And as Cesar Chavez says more succinctly, from the depth of need and despair, people can work together, can organize themselves to solve their own problems and fill their own needs with dignity and strength. Humans need freedom, and we need true community. We can believe in the yet to be because we're not the first in this work. We can believe because we know our history. We can believe because we can do our part. This is our work in this moment as we build this movement. Together this fall and beyond, because of people exactly like all of you, we've got so much in store. We're committed to staying steady and committed to the priorities set by our members. I'm excited to tell you that our youth organizers, Sarah and Ivy, will launch the next round of our Young Activist Leaders program next month. This is the same commitment to youth organizing through which I got involved in PJALS 30 years ago. And it is the most exciting part of our work to me. Our Young Activist Leaders program builds a network of skilled, passionate, insightful young leaders who are not the leaders of tomorrow, they're the leaders of right now. They are making their mark for racial justice, LGBTQ liberation, ending gun violence, and so much more. We're staying focused on organizing to end racist mass incarceration, pushing to transform policing, ending carte blanche and immunity from consequences, and saying no to a new jail. We're staying focused on pushing for immigrant rights and safety with the Spokane Immigrant Rights Coalition. The members of our Peace and Justice Action Committee continue to push against militarism. We continue anti-racist education through our Showing Up for Racial Justice Committee and through racial equity trainings with Greater Spokane Progress. We are planning now for voter education and get out the vote work, as well as our post-election response, where we will come together virtually and make sense of the results together and keep each other as safe as possible from potential white nationalist violence. This fall, we will welcome a new organizer into our phenomenal staff team. We'll welcome new steering committee members into our intergenerational, cross-class, multiracial leadership body. We are united and growing. We are rooted deep in our outrage and our love. We're keeping each other steady. We're taking turns and resting when we need to rest. We've got a long movement behind us. We've got our eyes on the prize of peace and justice, and we've got each other.